Today, we'll be designing and making a layered art piece inspired by Rosary windows with a laser cutter. In a software called Rhinoceros, I start by drawing a circle with a 10-inch diameter. Then I draw reference lines and circles on a separate layer, which will be my guide for developing the base pattern of the project. With the reference lines drawn, I start designing the base pattern on the layer that I'll be using for laser cutting. I'm using the line tool and starting one point of the line where the guidelines overlap. Unlike my previous layered art patterns, the design of this Rosary window inspired one will have a mix of straight and curved lines. I create the curves by offsetting the lines a 1/16 of an inch. Then I use the curve tool and create a 3-point curve using the ends of the original lines and the midpoint of the offset one. I select the lines for the pattern, add it to a block, and use the erase circle command to duplicate it around the shape. My initial thought was, wow, this looks amazing. The pattern is simple and beautiful. When I'm satisfied with the pattern, I copy it over, delete all the blocks except one, and create a new block. We need to add thickness to each of these lines so that we can laser cut it. All we need to do is go into one of the blocks and use the offset command. We can click the lines and easily create a copy to one side or both. I'm offsetting each line by a 1/16 of an inch and an 1/8 of an inch. The wider ones will be a bolder line in the final product. When all the lines are offset, I delete the original ones, select the entire pattern, and use the trim tool to clean up all the overlapping lines. Then I use the erase circle command to duplicate it around the circle. I love the way the pattern looked, but I wanted to add more thinner lines to it. I decided to add the straight lines that I mentioned in the beginning and an elegant double curved one at the outermost layer. It was really hard not to go above and beyond with these smaller intricate designs within the overall pattern. Eventually, I was satisfied with the density of the pattern and moved on to creating the next layers. To do this, I join all the lines together and use the offset command to copy each shape at a 1/16 of an inch smaller than the original one. Then I delete the original shapes and repeat this until I have 3 layers. At the end of this process, this is what every layer looks like. To check the design, I use the extrude command to pull each layer into 3D. I use the move command to bring every layer together. I decided to add an extra layer that would be clear blue acrylic at the bottom. This is how the 3D model looks when it's complete. I decided not to use the large piece of blue acrylic as the bottom layer, and instead I'll infill one shape of the pattern with clear blue acrylic. You'll see this when I'm assembling the product. I bring over my 1/8 inch EcoBirch plywood and mask them with paper tape to protect the surface from scorches and burns from the laser. I insert a sheet into my laser cutter and start the process of cutting this project. Layered Rosary art projects are one of my favorite types to design. It combines my career as an architect with my laser cutting hobby, and I've always loved looking at beautiful stained glass windows in all the cathedrals that I visited around the world. I enjoy both simple designs and also the complex ones with so many different shapes and colors. My preference as a designer is to keep my projects as simple as possible. As you could see in my design process, it's actually very difficult to create simple designs, and there are a lot of complex steps that I need to take. For this layered Rosary window art piece, it took a total of 40 minutes to cut all the layers. Once I have all of the layers, I bring them over to my work table and remove the paper masking tape from each piece. I start the assembly process by bringing all the layers together and placing them side by side. I turn over the middle layer, which will be the first one that we glue into place. I bring over my MaxiCure superglue and apply it on the shapes that go around the entire design. I find that this is enough to hold the pieces together. Now I align the layer with the bottom one and use the shapes as a guide. The spacing between the layers are equal on both sides of every line, which is how I figure out how to align the layers. Before we move on to attaching the next one, I apply glue along the small exposed edge of the base layer where I'll be attaching the clear blue acrylic shapes. I organize the shapes based on where they'll be attached in a pattern, and I carefully place each one into the cutout of the base layer. Now we're ready to move on to the last layer. I flip over the top layer and apply glue along the center of each line. I flip the panel over so that the glue side is facing down, align the perimeter of the panel with the perimeter of the base layers, and push down to attach them together. With that, this layered art piece inspired by Rosary windows is complete. This is by far my favorite layered mandala project. The balance between the bolder, wider lines and the thin, intricate ones creates a beautiful art piece that's hard to look away from. The addition of the clear blue acrylic contrasts really well against the light colored wood. If you enjoyed this project, check out my other woodcraft videos and consider subscribing. I'll see you again next week.